Good morning and welcome to Coffee and the Word. If you've known me for any amount of time, you know that one of my favorite, in fact, probably my favorite parable that Jesus tells is the parable of the prodigal son. And it's found in Luke chapter 15, and it comes after a parable about a lost sheep, comes after a parable of the lost coin, and then he tells the story of the parable of the lost son. And the lost son is the youngest son. He comes and he asks his dad for his inheritance because he doesn't want to wait for him to die. And he goes off and he blows it, right? And he does exactly what you would expect him to do. He goes off and he parties and he ends up broke and he ends up feeding pigs and then he ends up eating the slop that the pigs. Comes to his senses. He goes back home and his father welcomes him with open arms. That's the part of the story that we usually talk about. That's the part of the story that we normally focus on. I want to focus in this particular Coffee and the Word. I want to focus on the older brother. And I want to make sure that we ponder this part of it, because here's what happens with the older brother. And so it says, meanwhile, the older son, while this party's going on, while the everybody's celebrating that the younger son who blew his dad's inheritance, or blew his dad's money, is home. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard the music and dancing. So he called one of his servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I have been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you have never given me a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him. And so I want to focus on this part because it's the part if I preach a sermon on the prodigal son, I usually don't get to this part. And I think that this goes in line with what we've been talking about all week, which is that sometimes I think we get so caught up in us, right? And this older son's a good kid. Like, that's one of the things that I think is clear is this guy, he's out working in the field. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He even tells his dad, he's like, I've never disobeyed one of your orders. I've never shirked from my responsibility. I've always done what I was supposed to do. And you've never, ever given me the fatted calf. You've never let me celebrate with my friends. It isn't fair. And I think sometimes we feel like that, right? We feel like that sometimes we've been doing everything we're supposed to do, and it doesn't feel like God is throwing the party for us that he's throwing for the wayward one. And I just want to encourage you, because the father's attitude towards the son who was lost and is now found is the attitude that we should have when somebody who strays comes back, right? But kind of sometimes the attitude we have is the older son's attitude, because we get so caught up in the fact that I've been working really hard. I've been doing all the right things. I've been trying my best. And then this guy who wasted everything comes back. I want you to listen, though, to the father's response to his son. He says, my son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And so the father says, look, and this is something that I think we need to remember. The father says, look, when your son was gone, or when your brother was gone, he was lost. Like when he was dead. I had to celebrate him coming back. I had to celebrate the fact that he's back. But I want you to understand something. I never stopped celebrating the fact that you're here. Everything that I have is yours. We're not told how the older son responds to this. And I think there's a reason for this. Because it's a response you and I have to decide about. Like, are we going to respond the way the father responds? Or are we going to respond the way the older brother has been responding? Or are we going to finally decide that what's most important is what Jesus thought was most important? You see, he's talking to a bunch of Pharisees and scribes. And when he's talking to these Pharisees and scribes, he's trying to help them understand that God sees value in everybody. And he's yearning for those who have strayed to come back. He's yearning for those who have never come to come home. He's yearning for all of that. And we should too. What's the end of your story? How will you respond? Will you love the brother who's been doing things he shouldn't be doing? Or will you spend your life, talking about what a terrible person he is? Tonight at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock for our youth, 7 o'clock for adults, we're going to be talking about this story in a little more depth. And I've got so much more to say on this, but I wanted to introduce you to it. If you'd like to join us tonight, we'll be on Zoom. We'll be here in church, here live. You're welcome to join us. We're going to be unpacking this, all of these parables, and especially the parable of the prodigal son. So I hope you'll join us tonight at 7 o'clock. This is your formal invitation. If you need a Zoom link, shoot us a message. We'll get you a Zoom link so that you can participate in the class, or you can just come here tonight at 7 o'clock. We'd love to have you. For now, this has been another edition of Coffee and the Word. God bless.